I always believe the most successful people in life are the ones who have what I call a chip on their shoulder. Now that could mean that you grew up like in a poor neighborhood and you never had anything and everybody made fun of you and you were bullied. Or it could be like you grew up in the Rockefellers and you were a trillionaire and your friends said you're never going to amount to anything on your own because your dad and your mom gave you everything. But that's going to drive you to be like, I want to have success. Think about Tom Brady. Wasn't the greatest quarterback coming out of college, but he had that chip because of where he was drafted and it drove him to outperform. What's your chip on your shoulder? What drives you to get up and do it every day?
Yeah. So a lot of you guys may know I was a wrestler growing up, and there was this VHS, this tape I used to watch as a wrestler, and it was Tom and Terry Brands, who were two wrestlers at Iowa State, Iowa Hawkeyes, and they're twins. And I'd watch this DVD almost every single day while I was wrestling. And the DVD starts, it shows Tom Brands first. He's like, my name's Tom Brands. My goal is simple. I want to be the greatest wrestler in the entire world. And then his brother comes on. My name's Terry Brands. My goal is simple. I want to be the greatest wrestler in the whole world. I used to love that. Every single time I see that, and I was just like, all right, I want to be and so when I was wrestling, I think that every single day before practice. My name's Russell Brunson. My goal is simple. I'll be the greatest wrestler of all time. And so for me, it's like, I'm hyper competitive. So that would go through my head at practice and matches at everything. When I got in the business world, the very first part was like, growing up.
What do you feel drives that competitive nature though?
That's a good question.
What's behind that? Like, I want to be the greatest wrestler in the world. You transferred that into what you do. Yeah. Where does that come from?
I don't know. Analyze me. What do you think?
I don't know. We have to have a session afterwards.
Yeah, I'm not sure. A therapist in the room can walk me through this. I don't know exactly. I think in my head, like I feel like I was blessed. Like I remember my dad was a wrestler. He would coach me. So like in my head, I'm like, I should be able to beat all these people. Like I've got an advantage they don't have. Like I should be able to win, right? And then when I would win, like there's not, like, I don't know, even to this day, I've never had a better feeling in my life than like getting my hand raised at a wrestling match. Like
the chip could be like you just wanted to impress your dad.
Yeah.
You never know. There's a lot of
definitely part of that.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay, good.
So I got into business though. It was different because the business at first, my whole life growing up, I thought I was dumb. Like I just assumed I was because I struggled in school, couldn't pay attention. I just assumed I was dumb. And I remember getting into business. I've seen people have success. I'm like, can these people actually be smarter than me? Like, there's no way they can be smarter than me, right?
Yeah.
And so I looked what they were doing and I was modeling them. And eventually I started making some money. And it was different because a lot of people like, they'd make some money and stuff. But I was like, I became a student of the game, right? Like I obsessed with it. I go deep on it. Like I read the books and study and like at a different level than most people. And other people were more successful than me. And it drive me crazy. Like I was happy for them. They were my friends. I wanted to be successful. But in my head, I had the same complex start coming back where it's like, I want to be the greatest that's ever played this game.
Yeah.
Like how do I become the greatest? What do I need to do? And it took a decade before like all the other people, like my peers were all doing better, all making more, having more success. It was just so frustrating me. But like in my mind, I'm like, how do I become the best of this? And I didn't know. And it took a decade. But for me, I think that was the big part of the chip.
What do you think it was the one, like a few things, there's always a lot of things that cause you to like go from where you're at to like, 5-7 levels up there. I always talk about there's 4 types of people in life, salespeople, anything. There's those who wing it, the wingers. They wing everything, right? Try to figure it out. Those who dabble in it, they buy a few books, they go to a couple of free events. They believe in the lie that eventually they'll just figure it out on their own. Yeah. One day they'll get it. Most people are in that way. That's why they kind of stay where they're at. Then you have those who are the know-it-allers. They think they know everything. They have some success. Then they stop learning. They stop getting coaching. Their income gets capped. And then you have those, the very elite, that are committed to mastery. And those are the ones that are always investing in their skill level. When did you go, like I knew the time when I went from here to this, like I'm committed to mastery, like I'm all in. When was that for you? In like business, you were already doing that in school.
Yeah.
So when was that in business?
I think the first time, because I was in like, back then called the internet marketing world, because it was like this group of people who were doing internet marketing, right? And all of what we were learning and doing was based on like tactical stuff, right? Like Google PPC ads at the time, then AdSense and like, SEO and meta tag. It was like all just tactical things. And I kept hearing people talk about this guy, like Dan Kennedy. I didn't know who he was.
Okay.
And I remember I actually bought a Dan Kennedy course, started listening to it. And he was talking about direct mail and fax machines. I was like, what is this guy talking about?
Yeah.
What does that have to do with the internet? This makes no sense to me, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, it's like, I didn't understand it. So I was like, I put it on the shelf. And actually funny, it was a huge blessing in hindsight, but my wife and I, we had this little duplex and I think it was Memorial Day weekend or something. And we walk out in the yard and the whole yard's flooded and some pipe broke or something, I don't know. And so I have to go and spend the entire day digging up the yard trying to find and I'm not handy. Yes, my wife, I'm the least handy person ever. I don't know how to do that kind of stuff.
Not the handyman, huh?
So I had a shovel and I'm trying to I'm digging up the yard. And I had these Dan Kennedy CDs I'd bought off eBay. and like one of those old boom boxes, so I plugged in the extension cord and I was like, I'm just gonna listen to this.
Yeah.
This is before podcasts and phones. You guys don't remember. It was like, anyway, so I started listening to Dan Kennedy. So for like 8 hours while I'm digging my yard out, I'm listening to Dan Kennedy. And after I got past like the initial like fax machines and like stuff he's talking about, all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like what I'm doing right now was invented like back on the Pony Express, like people were writing letters, they were sending them in the mail, they were doing like all of a sudden I was like, oh, there's like this underlining base thing that makes this work. It's not just these tactics, like there's strategy, there's a deeper level of this.
Was it the patterns? Is that what you learned?
100%,
patterns.
Yeah. And he talked about like, hey, we did this over here in the fax world, and then the fax machines got banned, so we transitioned, but worked in direct mail. And like, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, this is not just like some hack that I discovered on the internet.
Yeah.
It's based on actual principles. And so that's when I went, I joined his mastermind with money I didn't have. It's my first time I invested.
Yeah.
I remember because I called his company, I kept begging him like, I need to be in the mastermind. And they're like sold out. There's a waiting list. I'm like, I need to be in the room. And like finally after me annoying them for whatever.
That's when you committed to mastery.
Yeah.
Because to master, you have to get trained by people who've already mastered the thing you want to master.
Yeah.
And
so I spent the next 6 years in that mastermind with Dan Kennedy, Bill Glazer. And I'm sitting in the room. There's no one doing internet marketing. I was the only guy. Everyone else was doing real estate events. They were doing those dinners. Everyone comes to dinner together. They pitch them stuff. And they're, like, that's what these guys I was learning from. People running infomercials, people doing phone call. Like, it was no internet marketing. I was the token internet. Me and Ryan Dice were the two token internet guys in the two different groups. And everyone else was doing this other stuff. So that's where I learned all this stuff. And then I take those things and apply them on the internet. I was like,
you took the patterns, the principles and the pattern. This is why this is so important, because as an entrepreneur, salesperson, whatever you do, I see this all. You see this all the time. Maybe you get good at like Facebook ads, and then Facebook changes something, and now all of a sudden you're not very good at Facebook ads because you don't understand the patterns. Or maybe you only can do YouTube, but you can't do anything else because you don't understand the patterns, right? So patterns is where it's at. So what's like a pattern that you learned from those guys that you transferred over to like internet marketing, ClickFunnels that really helped you blow up?
The first one was, I remember Dan Kennedy talking about one of his clients who was a chiropractor or dentist or some like a traditional business, right? And they hired him to do marketing. And so he was going to go build some marketing stuff. He's like, first, before I do marketing, I want to see what happened. Like, I want to see your sales process if it's broken. So Dan like calls the office, nobody answers, leaves a message, nobody picks up, and then he calls again and he's going through the whole process and he starts looking at every single piece. Like, okay, did the secretary pick up the phone? No. Did she call me back? No. Okay, finally you got a hold of her. What did she say? Did she close the deal? Did she not? And like start analyzing every single step in this process, right? And so Dan would walk us through like all the things and the mistakes and the problems. And so he came in, they hired him to build an advertising campaign. And he's like, you don't need ads. Like everything else is broken. And so you look at every step in this campaign and you start fixing it and tweaking it, fixing and tweaking it until the entire chain was working. And then he just threw some crap ads up there. And all of a sudden, like, you're a genius, you're making all this money. It's like, it would have worked prior. Your front desk girl wasn't picking up the phone. And when she did, she didn't have a script.
Right.
And so like everything stopped. Like it was hitting a brick wall right there. It's like fixing all those pieces. And so for me, like he would talk about that. I'm like, oh my gosh, like what's the actual customer journey my customer's going down? Like, I don't know. I'm like, okay, I'm going to put myself in their spot. I click on a link. What's the first thing I hit? Hit this page. And this is before funnels were a thing, right? This is where for me, the psychology of funnels was developed. Like I show up to a page and it's like, okay, there's a menu bar. You hover over them. Each one has like 20 links and you go from there and you're trying to figure like, how do I give this person money?
Yeah.
Right. And I remember hearing Dan Kennedy say like a confused mind always says no. So we're like, well, what if we didn't have 800 links on the page? What if we just had a headline and a place for them to give me the email address? We tried that. And it's like, oh my gosh, this worked great. Yeah. And the next page. And so it's like, we started like chiseling things away and tweaking things in the process. And so, I mean, if you read my .com secrets book, we go through like 10 or 12 different core funnels, but all these funnels were just that. So I was just like looking at the customer journey, like how do we
kind of fixing the ascension model?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like some of them are like, okay, we're gonna sell a book. Like what's the best way to do a book? And so we figured out and test and tweak and test and tweak and test and tweak. So eventually it's like, okay, this is the chain. When someone hits this page, here's all the core things. Now you can buy ads, it's gonna work. Well, before it's like, we're buying ads, it's not working. It's like, it's usually everything afterwards, right? So that's like a little thing that Dan would share about a chiropractor he worked with that I'm like, this is so applicable to everything I'm doing.
Yeah, you took something from an industry that had nothing to do with you, but the pattern was the same. The principle was the same thing, and that's how you transferred over. That's genius. And that's why your brand is so big, is because you recognize patterns and you can adjust no matter what happens because you understand patterns. If you don't understand patterns, you're kind of at the whim of the market, which is not a good place to be.